You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Good morning, this is a look at the tropics today, and almost all of the tropics have decided to park themselves in the Atlantic Ocean. 5 tropical cyclones are now active, and what we could see by the end of this hour might be 5 named storms, or at least 5 systems that have names, even though Rene has weakened to a depression. Still going, by the way, that one. But the 2 biggest cyclones that we're watching right now, Paulette, which made landfall in Bermuda in the early hours of this morning, and Tropical Storm Sally, which is just off shot there. Let's just get a little look at that. There's Sally, which is looking rather interesting right now, blowing up large amounts of convection, and information coming in from Recon on that, which we'll get to in just a moment. Don't forget that hurricane warnings are still in effect for Bermuda and also for, of course, Louisiana and Mississippi. Storm surge warning extending through Alabama as well. Tropical Storm Teddy formed earlier today too, and we believe that 21L will get a name in the next hour. If that does happen, the next name on the list is Vicky, and that's the second last name of the conventional naming list, which we've only witnessed once before now. My name is Nathan Foy. I'm joined by our team this hour discussing everything that's going on, consisting of Mike, Ike, Amy, Farhan, Kay, and Wyatt. Good morning to all of you.
Well, for me, it will be good night, actually.
Yes, and evening for the 2 of you over there on the Eastern Hemisphere. First of all, let's go over to Kay. You've been eyeing the Recon very closely.
Yes, and the good news is that Paulette is now moving away from Bermuda and the impacts are lessening. Hurricane force winds have moved away, now only experiencing tropical storm conditions. However, with Sally, it's a starkly different picture. Recon has shown that the centre, the low-level centre, is rapidly moving northeastward, which indicates it's aligning itself vertically now. Once it does that, it would be able to strengthen potentially rapidly and quickly become a hurricane.
Yep. And also with the northeastern shift in the center, there is some potential for the track to shift a little bit eastward as well.
Yep, so there is a look at Sally right now, and of course we'll take questions on that during this hour as well as everything else that's going on. Here's the latest National Hurricane Center forecast cones showing that tropical storm force winds lie just off the coast of very far northwestern Florida and Alabama, the coastline. And looking at Paulette there as well, you can see the tropical storm force winds still affecting Bermuda, but the rest of the storm will be moving away from any other land masses. And Wyatt, you're very close to the storm Sally right now.
Yep.
And you've been, I don't know if you mentioned this just now because I was distracted, but some increasing wind values in your area.
Yes, actually in Navarre Beach, Florida, a wind gust to 28 miles per hour was recently reported. And then near the Pensacola metro area, there has been several wind gusts of about 27 to 28 miles per hour. So winds are beginning to approach 30 miles per hour, and it is pretty breezy outside, I'm going to say.
That thing is blowing up. Look at the satellite imagery.
Yeah, that is very concerning because right now it's supposed to go into Mississippi, and we were only supposed to get maybe some strong tropical storm winds.
That looks like something you'd see in the Western Pacific.
Yes.
I know people have said that before, but it really is true at this point.
Yep, and now that the center is relocating to the northeast, the track does appear that there is a chance it could come closer here to Pensacola, so that is a little concerning. We did prepare for the worst a couple days ago, so hopefully everything will go well here. We'll see.
There's some visible imagery as well, and I must say, it appears as though hot towers are starting to circulate around what would be the center of this system. So
You would be correct in that assumption.
A sure,
shows the temperature is rising with height, which indicates a strengthening storm.
a sure sign that this storm is on the verge, probably, of hurricane status. This is what Laura did when it was first intensifying.
Trying to tell if the area around the hot towers is maybe an eye trying to develop.
Probably is.
And that's
Can't be
really
too
crazy
sure,
because,
yeah.
right, if that is the case, the center just relocated to the mid-level center and it's already beginning to do that, so that is a little concerning to me. Yeah.
So most of the storm is still not affecting land just yet, but we're still thinking about huge amounts of rainfall, aren't we?
Yep. There actually is an area. Let me pull it up quickly so I can make sure I know what the values are.
Let's just go to the
The National Weather Service out of Mobile, Alabama, has said that along like the Pensacola and Pensacola Beach and into Baldwin County, Alabama, northward into like southwestern Alabama could have 10 to 15 inches of rain, and then areas like Gulf Shores just south of Mobile, Pascagoula, and Gulfport could have 15 to 20 inches of rain, with isolated totals of 25 inches.
So you can see
we're talking, we're talking measuring the rainfall in feet rather than inches this time.
Gee. So it would appear that the center of the system, the storm right now, will be somewhere around here in those latest frames. The general trajectory is probably a little bit northwest. It might still jog further west or towards that general direction over the next hours and days. And of course, the wider cone pretty much takes it still over Louisiana and towards Mississippi and Alabama there. Just a crude little drawing there showing the potential track of the storm. And, oh, there it is again. And again, you can see the outer bands, the northern side, delivering rainfall over the coastal areas of Florida. Have you seen much this morning, Wyatt?
Actually, no, but it does look like that there's actually about to be something within the next minute or two in my area. But last night, there was actually a little bit of rain, and it was actually a rumble of thunder. Yeah, it freaked out the dog, so...
Yeah, most of that band is inland off the coast.
Yeah, and I'm looking at radar data from Mobile, and base velocity does appear to be picking up values of about 20 to 30 knots in that band, so it might get a little breezy here in a minute. I'm going to actually check that out, see what's going on.
Have we got any numbers closer to the center there? Perhaps?
Currently working on getting base velocity readings near the center.
Yeah, we're just looking at that right now. Okay, if you've got any comments or questions for us, please send a message to sorry, I've just lost that just for a minute. I was just distracted on our YouTube page, of course, right where you are right now, because I was just checking to see what was going on with some of these other systems, but we've not got... What we will have at the end of this hour is the full advisories from the National Hurricane Center, and they're going to be very busy. They're going to be doing advisories on 6 tropical cyclones, 5 in the Atlantic and 1 in the Eastern Pacific. Tropical storm Karen over there. And just to reiterate what we've got in the Atlantic right now, we have Sally on the far left there, Paulette, the strongest storm at the moment near the top, Rene, which is extremely weak but still going as a depression there towards the right. At the bottom is Teddy, that's Tropical Storm Teddy, which formed earlier this morning. And on the right-hand side, the far right there, that's currently Tropical Depression 21, but we believe it to be a storm, and it will probably get a name by the end of this hour.
All right. I just took a look outside, and it is now raining, and it's pretty breezy out there. I would say maybe about 15 miles an hour right now. Yeah.
So there we have it.
Just base velocity has picked up a peak wind gust of 69 knots near the center.
Some
Okay.
distance away from the radar, so that would be some distance in the air, but it's getting there. It's getting that way, isn't it?
Right. And depending on how deep the convection is, does determine how far down the winds will be mixed. And there does appear to be some very deep convection in that area right now, so it wouldn't really be surprising to see, maybe 60 knots at the surface right now. But we'll see when recon gets into there and to that part of the storm and at the 10 a.m. advisory.
Let's take some questions. Do you think this could explode into a Category 2 before it hits Mississippi or Louisiana? Talking about Sally there, it definitely could. Considering how bulky that convection's getting, I mean, that is really...
Yeah, it like did this, it just fired up, like, was watching it on satellite this morning, and I'm like, it might come this way and bring us a little bit, and now I'm like, okay, but yes, it could possibly become maybe a Category 2. I wouldn't say anything higher than that, because there's not much time left for it to intensify over water.
All right, Ike, let's go over to you. What are we looking at here? Bermuda?
A webcam for Bermuda.
So that's how it's looking there right now. You can see there's still very treacherous conditions. And typical of what you would see in a hurricane there. Low visibility, low clouds. The sea is very disturbed by the looks of things. And sheets of rain just coming through. And I believe in a moment we've also got what Amy's showing there. Where's this?
This is in Biloxi, Mississippi, which Biloxi is currently under a hurricane warning and storm surge warning.
So things looking fairly quiet there right now. Is this area being evacuated, do we know?
I have not heard anything yet. I will look to see if they are evacuating yet.
Well, there's still a few vehicles around there at the moment. No clear signs of anything going on along the shoreline there. So I imagine similar scenes to where you are right now, Wyatt.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
I was just commenting on what we're looking at on the screen here and whether your conditions are rather similar.
Maybe slightly worse than that. It is breezy. I don't see really much wind in that. But
That's
then
true,
again, though,
actually.
you do have a band coming through.
Hardly anything going on
Yeah.
in that image wind-wise. Let's see if we've got any more questions whilst we keep looking at that. And a lot of questions about records and such. There's plenty of them. Could Rene reorganize into a tropical storm again?
Well, the latest I heard was that its low-level circulation's been disrupted by outflow from Paulette, and it may no longer be a cyclone.
No! I want it to survive a bit longer. National Hurricane Center would be very annoyed if it did become a tropical cyclone again. They've been anxious to get rid of it for ages now. You can tell in their terse forecast discussions. Did Sally just stop in its place? Not really, no. What you can't see when you look at all that big convection blowing up is what's going on underneath, and we're still in the impression that it's moving northwest or west-northwest at what's the National Hurricane Center's movement speed? I think it's 8 miles an hour, they're saying.
That is correct.
Yep.
West northwest at 8.
And but we'll see what happens because the center does appear to be reforming. It will be very interesting to find out the inner structure of the storm and the way it's moving.
I do think this is going to continue to trend east on that cone. The cone
Yeah.
still has it moving pretty much over Louisiana.
Yeah, the latest track guidance and consensus aids actually takes it near like either Biloxi or Pascagoula, Mississippi, which is like really close to the Alabama-Mississippi border.
And you can see there's a
Yeah.
fairly
And
low
this-
confidence in the National Hurricane Center forecast because of how
Yeah.
large the cone is, even at the short range.
Right, and then that was like before recon found the center to the northeast of where it was when the models ran. So yeah, then that might be even further east at this point, but we will see what exactly happens.
We will find out in about half an hour when the new code comes out.
Yep, a lot of people suggesting that Tropical Depression 21 is now a named storm. That's not official just yet. We are expecting that to be the case when the National Hurricane Center update in 45 minutes. We're not going to do that preemptively, but we've listed it as 21L Tropical Storm, which is what we have right now. So to recap, we've probably got 4 named storms, well, ought to be named storms active, and 1 tropical depression, which used to be a storm. Sally, Paulette, Rennie, Teddy, and 21. And Karen are in the Eastern Pacific, which is doing nothing. 2 of the Atlantic systems are threatening land, and they're appearing on the screen right now. And let's remind ourselves of some of those warnings again. For Sally, it's gotten a little stronger. There's not been any changes at the last advisory from the previous one. I can't remember the last time they made any changes to the warnings. So you've got a storm surge warning for Port Fourchon, Louisiana to the Alabama-Florida border, Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, and Lake Bourne and Mobile Bay. Hurricane warning for Morgan City, Louisiana to the Mississippi-Alabama border, including those lakes again, and metropolitan New Orleans. Tropical storm warning for the Mississippi-Alabama border to Indian Pass, Florida, and Intracoastal City, Louisiana to west of Morgan City, and a hurricane watch for the Mississippi-Alabama border to the Alabama-Florida border, and a tropical storm watch for Indian Pass to Ohlockonee River, Florida, the same as yesterday. So we're still talking about the surge there, which could reach up to 11 feet in parts of Louisiana and Mississippi, up to 8 feet perhaps as well, up to the Mississippi-Alabama border, and perhaps 6 feet for Mobile Bay.
And speaking of surge, we're getting the first reports in that the water levels are already rising on the coast.
Yes,
One
they
percent
are
is
already.
reported.
And where's
They are
this?
already reported. The Florida Panhandle, 1 to 3 feet and rising, and so is in. Oh God, I can't pronounce these names. Somewhere in Alabama, and somewhere in Mississippi. I can't pronounce neither of these names. I'm looking at Twitter right now. I can't
Okay.
pronounce it for real. Goodness me.
Well, hopefully someone else can. It'd be much good to us otherwise. Whilst we're on that, rainfall estimates 24 inches possible over portions of the central Gulf Coast from the western Florida Panhandle to far southeast Louisiana through the middle of the week. Life-threatening flash flooding is possible. In addition, this rainfall will likely lead to widespread minor to isolated major flooding on area rivers. So 24 inches possible, isolated amounts. 8 to 16 inches expected in the main there. And the outer bands are expected to produce an additional rainfall of 1 to 3 inches across the Florida Peninsula today as well. That could cause more flash and urban flooding and prolonged high flows and ongoing minor flooding on rivers across central Florida. As always, tornadoes are possible. We're not expecting a big tornado outbreak, but as with any tropical cyclone, we could be looking at a handful. And of course you've got the surf conditions, swells, which will continue to affect areas from the west coast of the Florida Peninsula through to the coast of southeastern Louisiana.
I was looking for evacuations, and I could not find anything of a mandatory evacuation for Biloxi, Mississippi, but there is a mandatory evacuation for Hancock County, Mississippi, which the evacuation went in place about 3 hours ago.
Thank you for that information as well. So lots of information which will be coming through as time goes on. The big one, though, we're expecting is that the National Hurricane Center will be updating the information on all of the tropical cyclones when we get to the end of this hour. But you know, you're looking at Sally there, it's continuing to just completely balloon. We were looking yesterday when it was really struggling a little bit with wind shear on the northwestern side. Well, that's been completely expelled, clearly. And you can see, you know, compared to yesterday, I don't think you can even compare the amount of convection there was yesterday to today. It must be about 5 to 10 times larger.
Yeah, it is.
It has been heavy.
All right. In Fort Morgan, Alabama, an elevated platform has reported a sustained wind of 32 miles per hour, gusting to 36. That is a little bit higher in the air than 10 meters, so that might be maybe gusting to about 32-ish versus 36.
So those numbers steadily rising. Once again, here's a look out of Bermuda right now, and you can see there hurricane landfall from Paulette early this morning, and that's how it looks right now. Doesn't look like there's clear, obvious signs of damage there from the webcam we're looking at least, but certainly very inclement conditions. No one's out, as you would expect. Still tropical storm conditions likely occurring there right now, along with that heavy rainfall. As you can see there, the sheets of it just folding down the camera lens, but still getting a lot of it. Visibility is still poor.
Strangely, never mind, Nathan, go ahead.
Well, I was going to move on at this point to more questions. Could there be 6 simultaneous tropical cyclones? Yes, there could. I don't think it will happen, but you never know.
It could be that the NEC upgrade 21L to the TS and downgrade Renee to a remnant low. That could be the case, and we will all be very sad. We will all be very sad if that happens.
That will annoy the people who are looking for records. Let's see what else we've got now. Will Renee affect where Teddy goes? What do we think about that?
Its remnants could be swallowed up by Teddy if it curves up north. Sort of like what happened to Alpha in 2005. It got absolutely walled by Wilma. Well, that comparison might be a bit of a stretch, but you see where I'm going.
I did see a question that's just disappeared off my screen, but a question basically of whether we will beat Zeta from 2005 in terms of named storms. Honestly, just consider that if this is indeed the V storm that we're about to get shortly in half an hour, then that puts it about, what are we talking about, over 20 days ahead of 2005.
That is surreal.
That is rather surreal. So, you know, you do the math on that one. It seems
basically, this season.
Yes?
Basically, this season is extremely active. That's that, really.
Except in accumulated cyclone energy, which is somewhere around average. Maybe not for long.
We'll see. Some people are saying that Teddy will become a storm that grab ace for the North Atlantic.
Yes.
We'll
Teddy
see
could...
We'll see if that be correct or not.
And Paulette, that they're going to be ace makers, that's for sure. It seems like, according to radar, Sally is building a good inner core structure with maybe a partial eye wall that the radar is picking up. I would agree with that. That could well be a partial eye wall, could even be a full eye wall, because don't forget, this is radar imagery and it can't see the other side. Not usually anyway, so you don't really know what's going on the other side. Recon might. Do we have any more news from them? Oh, we're also joined by Devon now. Good morning.
Yeah, about Recon, though, there are some tropical storm force winds being, based on SFMRs, about 40 knots to the southeast.
Hi, Devon. How are you? Tracking 5 tropical cyclones in the Atlantic.
Yeah, 5 active tropical cyclones at the same time hasn't happened since 1992. Pretty impressive.
And I actually saw 1 or 2 questions about the CDPS scale and what they're saying right now, mainly for Sally. But first of all,
Yep.
what did it verify out to be for Paulette?
Paulette, I haven't really ran them.
Oh.
I ran the numbers on Paulette like 3 days out, and it was a 5. Since it was Cat 2 landfall, I think, at 100 miles an hour, I think that nothing much really changed because I ran the numbers as if it was making a 100-mile-an-hour landfall, and that came out to be a borderline stage 4-5. So
It was 90 in the
I
end.
don't
It's
think
only
that
just gone up to 100. We had it down as stage 4, but still.
okay. Well, then that would make it a 4 then, because Cat 2 would make it borderline 4 or 5. So if it was only 90 miles an hour, then it would have been a 4.
So what about Sally then? What are we expecting?
5.
And to explain to people what that actually means in layman's terms.
Yeah, so what that means is that 2 feet of rain is expected to drop in the landfall area as the storm is going to stall over pretty much the same area for 3 days. So, yeah, extreme flooding expected.
Which areas do you think might be affected the worst from the flooding?
Basically, the immediate landfall area, I would imagine, in any places about, I would say, 20 miles inland. Taking a look at the latest WPC forecast, pretty much that's what it says. The immediate landfall area, just to the northeast of the center in particular, is expected to get over 20 inches of rain. And that 20-inch swath has only gotten bigger and bigger and bigger as time's gone on. So definitely very concerning, to say the least. Luckily that we're not looking at Florence or Harvey type of rainfall numbers here, but still a very widespread region of 20 inches of rain currently expected from the WPC is a very massive concern, to say the least.
And it's really ballooned up in the last few hours. We were just commenting a few minutes ago. Last night its convection was really struggling due to wind shear. It's completely blown that away, hasn't it?
I haven't taken a look at satellite on it.
Oh,
Yeah,
maybe you should.
I haven't looked at. Yeah, I probably should, but I'm not really in any position to look at
Sure.
the storm right now, unfortunately.
But from what we've heard as
kind of-
well, there's been a centre relocation. Was
Yeah,
that actually
that's what I've
confirmed?
heard. Yeah, that's what I've heard, that the center's taken a nice jog to the north and east, which I guess that's good for New Orleans area somewhat, but definitely poor for Biloxi and Mobile, because now it seems like they would be underneath the direct center of the gun.
Yep, so stick with us on this. The National Hurricane Centre will be updating in the next half hour. Sometimes they come out very early. We'll be watching all the time. In the meantime, we'll really take more questions, to be honest. So ask anything you like. Is Paulette going through an eye wall replacement cycle?
No, it needs to have an eye wall in order to undergo an eye wall replacement cycle.
Oh, yes, no, it really open on the eastern side right now, looking at that.
Yeah, it's extremely open. With an eye wall replacement cycle, what you'll see is you'll have an inner eye wall and an outer eye wall, and you'll see the inner eye wall sort of die and the outer eye wall take over. If you want to take a look at that, like pull up a radar image, a radar compilation of Hurricane Matthew as it was going up the coast of Florida. Perfect showing of what an eye wall replacement cycle will look like on radar. But as far as this storm, no, you got to have an eye wall in order to be able to replace it. This thing hasn't had an eye wall yet.
And whether 21L will be designated a potential tropical cyclone? No, that won't happen. They only really get designated when there's a threat to land.
Potential tropical cyclone. Well, it's already a tropical cyclone, so
Well,
why
it
would
is.
they downgrade it?
It is. Do you think that Sally is trying to form an eye? Could the National Hurricane Center jump it up to hurricane status, I assume, in half an hour?
Oh, they found hurricane SFMRs?
No, that's just a question whether the National Hurricane Center could jump it up to hurricane status.
I haven't heard anything that would suggest that it's a hurricane right now. Maybe a bump up to 70 miles an hour, but evidence isn't necessarily that strong for that yet either. So I would expect the National Hurricane Center, usually conservative, keep it for 65 mile an hour now, and upgrade to 70 and 75 miles an hour, because it definitely does have signs that it's going to be strengthening, but it hasn't strengthened yet.
All right, thanks for that. Could Teddy make landfall in Bermuda? We've been watching that a little bit as well. At the moment, suggesting that it will just miss, but then, you know, we had that with Paulette, didn't we?
Yeah, it's 7 days out. That's all I'm going to say. It's 7 days out.
So, still up in the air, that one. It would be pretty bad luck if that was to happen again in just a week's time. And do we think Teddy can affect the islands since it's going more western? I assume they mean the Lesser Antilles. It doesn't look that way.
Looks like it's going to recurve way before then.
I mean, very early model runs.
The Lesser Antilles they can expect some rip currents from the storm, no doubt about that. But as far as direct impacts, no.
Very early model runs were suggesting that maybe it would go into the Caribbean Sea, but they've long since changed their mind on that.
Yeah, because the progenitor of Teddy was actually supposed to split into two systems, one going off towards Bermuda and another one going into the Caribbean. But it seems like whatever interview that was supposed to go into the Caribbean isn't happening now.
So, questions here about what do we think about rapid intensification chances for Sally and how might it materialize?
It needs to get an eyewall first. I can't tell you. It's basically the odds of it getting an actual eyewall, and then it's a very small storm, so shooting up in intensity would not be out of the question for a storm as small as this one. You take a look at another very small hurricane in Hurricane Humberto, which is strengthened very quickly. This storm strengthened a lot more gradually than initially predicted, which is a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely doesn't look like that a major hurricane impact is going to happen at this point, which is good.
It's a relief.
But yeah, rapid intensification, it's definitely not off the cards with a system as small as this, but intensity predictions for these small cyclones are incredibly difficult. If intensity predictions for Laura were hard, and that was more of a normal size one, this one's small, this is going to be incredibly difficult to be able to pin down.
Well, all right, I have some news regarding recon. So one recon plane in Sally is now heading back to where the possible new center is.
Okay.
And there's also a new aircraft recon to go into Sally as well that just took off.
As we look at this screen along the coast there that Amy is showing, and where's this?
This is in Orange Beach, Alabama.
All right, so that's looking out there towards the storm somewhere in the distance. That camera's very close to the waves.
Yeah. It is. I assume this is a camera maybe placed on a lifeguard tower, or just someone came out and put it out here.
Yeah. In Orange Beach right now, sustained winds are at about 15 miles an hour.
Oh yeah, it's on a little hut there.
But you can see how the surf it's getting more rough out there, especially as Sally starts to get closer to the coastline.
Yeah, and that's over in Alabama, which is still a little distance from the storm yet compared to places like, well, it's making its closest pass to Panama City right now, for instance, so it will make its closest pass, well, unless it turns north, it will make its closest pass to Pensacola later this afternoon, probably. And Wyatt will be watching from there. Mike, any thoughts from you right now? I just want to bring...
looking at base velocity.
Okay.
You can see definitely the knots have increased, but something to keep in mind, and not a lot of people get, that the further distance away, the radar has to tilt itself in a certain angle to capture that velocity, and therefore it's less accurate the more nautical miles you get out from the center of the radar. So while radar might be picking up as high as 70 knots, that's still it's inaccurate at the moment because that's at altitude. So we'll have to wait and see if maybe another few hours to confirm those 69 knot readings.
Yeah, well, it would suggest that it's probably 70 miles an hour at most.
Correct.
Yeah.
To it so that away to the surface point up the radar. So the radar is shooting out straight.
We could.
Because you're
Oh, there we go.
straight.
You might want to repeat that, Devon, because we barely heard you on that.
I apologize. So I'll go ahead and say this again. So the Earth is curving away from the radar. So the radar is shooting out straight, but since the Earth's curving away from the radar, your altitude is going up as you get further away.
Yep.
Correct.
Euxinada, you're also on the line right now. I want to try and get Florida voices in here because that's where the storm's closest to right now. What are your thoughts? And did you feel anything from the storm down there in the Tampa region?
Yeah.
Hold on, we're struggling with your signal as well, actually.
Oh, hold up. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. I'm unable. So in Tampa, we are definitely getting impacted. We kept getting out our bands since our time, and we still are getting out our bands right now. I just woke up and hold up.
Oh.
He's completely cut out now.
Well, that was abrupt.
Yeah, no, my mic cut out.
Oh, okay.
My apologies. Basically, we have been getting this entire time in Tampa. In the band.
All I heard was outer bands. We're really struggling with that right now, but we certainly get the point. Has there been any damages or anything like that, though?
Not noticeable, no.
Flooding?
No.
Oh. Because there were rumblings that there could still be some minor flooding occurring in parts of central Florida today.
But I wouldn't be surprised if there was.
Let's see if we have any more questions at this point. We haven't got any updates from the National Hurricane Center yet. It could be any time in the next 25 to 30 minutes. Has there been an update from Recon? I doubt it at this point.
Nope.
Nothing just yet.
Yeah, we should have the recon that's going in, that looks like it's heading for the center, an update within the next few minutes.
Just double checking all of the updates right now. So we're still looking at, we've actually got the update out for Carina at least, probably the least important tropical cyclone right now, maybe apart from Rene. Carina, which is out there in the eastern Pacific, which you won't even get to see today because we're so busy looking at the Atlantic. Let's see if we can try and get it on the screen. The eastern Pacific somewhere, that thing there on the right hand side, that's Carina right now. 45 miles per hour and a pressure of 1001. They're expecting a 50 mile an hour peak. Enough said, not going to affect land.
Okay. That is the most irrelevant storm I've ever heard of.
Eastern Pacific is just sad. It's just name adding at this point.
But we want to make sure you know about everything, just in case.
Yep. Now, Renee is dead as far as I know. Like, it ended up getting completely sheared off from Paulette, from what I heard.
All we've got is the infrared of that on our screen here. It's still showing up some decent convection. It's just whether it's got a circulation or not, and some people suggesting no. Is that right? Or whether the National Hurricane Center are just going to pull the plug anyway and call it a remnant low. Also, you might notice
the outflow from Paulette. There's 5 storms active at the.
Yep. And you'll also notice down the bottom right-hand side of the screen there, near the edge, very edge, you can see another area of yellows and reds there. That's the tropical wave emerging off Africa, and that's now got a 40% chance in the next 5 days of being yet another storm.
Oh.
Nice.
Devon wasn't pleased to hear that.
I mean, that's Wolfrid.
It would be.
No.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It's very ridiculous.
It's September.
We could have Greek names by the end of this week.
We have Vicky.
Sorry?
It's September.
We have Vicky.
Vicky has formed. That's breaking news.
Okay.
Breaking news.
Named Storm.
That tropical storm Vicky has formed. That's the latest tropical storm in a very long list now in the Atlantic. 45 mile-an-hour winds, a pressure of 1002. That was 21L. And they're expecting the storm to peak at that intensity and remain a tropical storm until Wednesday.
This is also the first V-named storm since 2005. This is also only the second V-named storm in recorded history.
Update on Teddy, 40 mile-an-hour winds, pressure 1004. They're expecting a peak still of 115 miles per hour. So that's really exactly the same as it was. Devon?
Yeah, I was just gonna add the caveat. Since 1950.
Since naming, yeah.
Because we've only been naming storms since 1950, because 1933 and 1887 would have also broken.
What letter would they have got to those 2 years?
I'm
trying to think.
1887 was 24 or 25 named storms,
24,
so
yeah.
that would have gotten into the Greeks.
I believe 1933 is
And
up to
1933
20
was at
right
least
now.
22, so that also would have
22.
gotten.
Certainly a lot. We got a lot of signal difficulties at the moment. We'll try and persevere. More questions then that are coming in whilst we wait for the other advisories to come out. If you just missed it, Vicky has now officially formed on the far right-hand side of your screen there. That's the latest tropical storm of this whirlwind hurricane season. How much rain is possible with Sally? We said earlier that it could be up to isolated amounts of 24 inches, but 8 to 16 will probably be common. And what are our predictions on the wave coming off the coast of Africa? At the moment, it's a bit early to say, but it could be a rather low latitude cyclone, but I really couldn't tell you what exactly it's going to do.
I have an update on Recon. They are in what appears to be the southeastern quadrant right now. They are recording winds of about 48 knots, and it's not flagged for SFMR. And that's surface. It's like the surface wind, I believe.
All right. And how far from the center is that?
I think they'll be about in the center within the next minute or two, whenever it should update. It updates every 10 minutes. Last update was at the 1436Z, and it's.
And which side was that?
Southeast.
Southeast. So.
They might. I feel like they might go with a 70 mile-an-hour storm. I don't think they'll go with a hurricane just yet, until they have hurricane observations from Recon or surface.
Do you still think a Category 5 hurricane can form this year, and if so, would it likely be a Greek name? Well, at this stage, it's either Wilfred or a Greek name, you would think.
Yeah.
If there's, yeah,
Oh, we're struggling again there.
And if I were to offshoot a current storm to get possibly Category 5 status, it'd be Teddy.
Yes.
no.
That would be a big if, though.
Yeah, big. Yeah, massive.
Any chance that Rene could reform?
Stop. Next question, please.
We don't have any further questions just yet, and no updates from National Hurricane Center on the remaining systems. The most interesting ones, in my opinion. Rene, just to see if people will get angry if it's still active or if it dies. And then, of course, the two serious situations, Paulette and Sally. Those updates are still on the way, and we'll expect them at any time, really, in the next 15 minutes, and then we'll be going off the air. And we've got two other streams that are running live right now. Automated feeds, 24/7 picture of everything on the main channel right now on Force 13 on YouTube. And on our US channel, search Force 13 US, you can see live satellite imagery uninterrupted of Sally. And we'll be live again with more commentary later this evening at a usual time. But at the moment, we're still waiting for those updates, and we'll take some more questions in the next 15 minutes as well. Let's see if we've got any more right now, unless anyone wants to make a comment.
Yeah. There was a question I saw, and it was, if Wilfred were to form right now, before Renee dissipates, would it be a record for the Atlantic Basin for the most amount of storms active at the same time? And that answer would be, I believe so, actually.
6 cyclones and 5 storms.
No, it would not. 1992. Oh, six cyclones active at the same time? Yes, that would be a record, as far as I know. The record, as far as I know, was in 1992 with 5 simultaneously active storms.
Well,
Oh, 5
yeah, I have 5 right
simultaneously
now.
active systems.
Okay.
3 of them were tropical depressions, but
Right.
they were all active at the same time.
I mean, we have 5 active storms right now.
Yeah, exactly. 2 of them are tropical depressions. Well, now
1.
only one.
Getting
of them.
difficult to track, isn't it? 4 active tropical storms. That much is for certain.
We're not coming. We're,
Alright, an
we're not
update.
coming close to the 1998 record of 4 simultaneously active hurricanes, though. That doesn't look like that's going to be beaten.
Alright, I have a minor update with Recon.
Mhm.
They haven't updated the since last time I spoke about it just yet, but they did mark a center fix at about 28.3 north and 86 point, I want to say 86.8 west, and it went down from 998 to 993 millibars.
All right. What? You mean from 993 to 988?
No, 998 to 993.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
It dropped 5 millibars since the last pass?
Could you just repeat
haven't-
those coordinates again, just so I can...
They haven't done a actually. One sec. It looks like they're getting really close to doing a pass. That looks like they might have just missed the center to the west because winds were coming from the. It just updated here. The winds were coming from the southwest, and then they went into a little north, and now winds are coming from the west. So it looks like and the pressure's 996 millibars there.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
But that's
'Cause I'm like, if that thing dropped 5 millibars since the last pass, we've got a massive problem.
The first pass that was further to the south was 998, and then the most recent pass that was further to the northeast was 993.
And then you got closer, though, yeah?
Yeah, and then it looks like that they might have just missed the center, and it's 996.
So what coordinates are we thinking on that?
Most recent pass was 28.3-ish north and 86.8 north.
Oh, down there. 86.8 west. So that
Yes,
would put
yes.
it south of what would appear to be the center on satellite imagery. What would obviously appear to be the center, but
yeah, and they went over where like the most recent center pass was. It looks like and like I said, the winds were originally coming from like the south and southwest, and now they're coming from due west.
yeah, I just wanted to get a reference point for people so that we can plot distances. So that makes it 138 miles from Panama City, 143 miles from Pensacola, 139 from Orange Beach, which is where we saw that webcam not long ago, and there it is again actually. Where else have we got? 174 miles from Mobile, 186 from Biloxi, and 223 from New Orleans.
Yeah, and like I said, the directions of the wind kind of gives me reason to believe that it might have shifted just a little bit more to the north or east.
Rene is still a tropical depression.
The record stand, everyone.
And Paulette is now still a Category 2, 85 knots, that's 100 miles per hour, a pressure of 970. They're forecasting a high-end Category 3 peak now.
Wait, it's still strengthening?
They're forecasting a 125 mile an hour peak tomorrow.
Ah. That'll be interesting to see if that plays out.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, they've gone pretty high on that.
It's just past Bermuda. Why would it be strengthening? Storms weaken when they go away from Bermuda.
Not all of them.
Why? Paulette, stop doing weird things.
Sally has winds of 65 miles per hour, and they've lowered the pressure to 991 millibars. Hurricane warning issued for the coast of Alabama.
Yes, that's just come out. So 991 they've gone with, yep. And they're expecting a peak of 90 miles per hour, as they've been saying for quite a while. So tropical storm warning and hurricane watch from the Mississippi-Alabama border to the Alabama-Florida border has been changed to a hurricane warning.
Okay. That means I guess I should now expect winds of just below hurricane force since I'm so close to that.
How close?
Well, Pensacola is one county away from the Alabama. Like literally, Pensacola's like at the border.
So very close to the hurricane warning there.
Yep, I'm surprised that they didn't put a hurricane watch for maybe the smallest portion of Panhandle based on how it's recently moving. They looks like that. I'm reading the coordinates. They did shift the cone a bit. I don't have the graphic yet, but 30 north and 88.7 west.
That's after it moves inland. Just before it moves inland, it's 29.8, 89.1. Let me just get a location on that. 29.8, 89.1. It hasn't moved very much, actually. They're still talking about Louisiana into the Gulfport area.
That's interesting because the most recent consensus aids were a little bit further just than that. Maybe they're just waiting to see exactly how the center shift plays out. That's my guess.
So that's all of the updates at this point. They've all come out now, so no real changes since 8 a.m. Eastern. Still 65 miles per hour for Sally. Is anyone surprised by that?
A little bit. I thought it would maybe be 70 just based on the satellite look.
Well, most people are expecting it to be a hurricane by now, so most are probably surprised by this.
And Paulette, there it is, now a Category 2, has been for a little while. 100 miles per hour, although the latest imagery doesn't look hugely convincing, if you ask me. But there it is. Still looking decent, and if it does get that eye together, then it could make a run for Category 3. National Hurricane Center certainly seem confident with that latest forecast for 125 miles per hour by late tomorrow. And as for Rene, which people are either going to love or hate for its persistence, they're saying deep convection continues to pulse over the eastern portion of its circulation, enough to maintain the system's status as a tropical cyclone. However, recent visible satellite imagery, they actually spelt it statellite, interestingly, suggests that the circulation may not be as well defined as it was yesterday. I'm sure they'll correct that pretty promptly.
I'm looking at the discussion for Sally, and they say the initial motion is a uncertain west-northwest at 5 knots.
That's much slower.
Yeah, and it lies a little west of the consensus aids around the ECMWF and GFS models.
These cones will update shortly. They haven't just yet, but we'll keep trying on that.
I was looking at the public advisory, and they have raised the storm surge forecast slightly for the Mississippi Alabama border to Alabama and Florida border, including Mobile Bay, now 4 to 7 feet instead of 4 to 6 feet.
Oh, that's not good because Mobile is very low lying around the coast, and they have a lot of buildings and stuff there. And 7 feet high is not gonna be nice there.
And it looks like 3 to 5 feet from Alabama, the Alabama-Florida border to I don't know how to say this city, but it includes Pensacola Bay. Okay. That is a raise from 2 to 4 feet at 5 a.m.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
So those are very concerning. The storm surge water is one of the water is one of the big killers in tropical cyclones, and I always focus on that as that's one of the biggest impacts to watch.
Now, you've been looking at this webcam for a while. Have you noticed any changes?
I have not seen many changes. I've seen it gets a bit sunny at times, and then it goes back cloudy, but the surf, it seems to be remaining just as rough as it was earlier.
And it's not coming in anymore, is it?
Not that I can see, but I can imagine that this might change, it will change as Sally gets closer to the coast.
So to reiterate, if you've missed it, or if you've just woken up maybe, you will have missed a lot. To reiterate right now, there are 5 tropical cyclones active in the Atlantic and 1 in the Eastern Pacific. 4 storms active in the Atlantic. Sally, a 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm, which could become a hurricane. They're expecting it. Paulette, which is expected to become a high-end Category 3 after its hurricane landfall in Bermuda this morning. Tropical Depression Rene, which is still alive. Tropical Storm Teddy, which was named first thing this morning, if I'm not mistaken, because I've already forgotten. And Vicky, which has just been named now by the National Hurricane Center and is the 20th named storm, I believe. Was that right? Or 21st? I forget.
That's correct, the 20th.
The 20th named storm of the season. And compared to 2005, which is the benchmark people always aim towards when they look at the hyperactive seasons, Vince only formed in the first week of October.
Absolutely miles ahead.
We're just waiting for new forecast cones so that we can show you before we go off the air. We will, of course, return later on.
It's updated for me.
Yeah, they should be there now. Nope, they're still not there on this screen. Let me just shuffle about a little bit. There we go. There's the updated one for Sally and for Paulette. There it goes. So
now
there we have it.
Oh my gosh, I am back in the cone again.
You're back in the cone, yes.
Yes, and now it looks like it's going to go near the mouth of Mississippi River and then move north into about Biloxi or close to Pascagoula.
Very uncertain situation there.
Yep.
On my screen, I have the new graphic for storm surge, and something interesting about this is it has places such as Pensacola Bay at 1 to 3 feet, while in the public advisory they stated 3 to 5 feet. I don't know if it was a mistake on the graphic or
Oh
if it was a
yeah,
typo.
because that's
in
up
the
to date as well.
It is. I'm not sure if they made a mistake, but in the public advisory it states that places such as Pensacola Bay could get 3 to 5 feet of storm surge.
So there we have it. That's the wide picture right now in an exhausting Atlantic hurricane season so far. It's been pretty ridiculous, but here we go right now. Here we go again. 5 tropical cyclones active in the Atlantic, and Vicky is the latest one to be named. Any final thoughts from the team before we finish up here?
Anybody along the northern Gulf Coast should be prepared for sudden changes in the forecast, as we have seen over the past day. And if you're under any warnings, you should heed those warnings and follow local officials if they give you instructions to evacuate or shelter in place.
Ike? But you wanted to say something there. Alright, I suppose not.
14 of September. One name left. Boy.
We had a bit of interference there, but anyway, there we go. 5 cyclones active, 4 named storms, and a lot of very tired forecasters, I should imagine, by the end of this phase of activity.
Oh, yeah.
We will be back on the air later this evening at about 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern, but I haven't... Sorry, who wants to cut in there?
I want to give one final thought. They actually just reported a 70-mile SFMR in Sally.
Well, there we go. So that, it could be on the uptick there. Ike, did you want to say anything just there?
The Atlantic's too active.
The Atlantic's too active, yes.
It's like the...
Hashtag ban the Atlantic.
Oh dear, oh dear.
We've switched the Atlantic and West Pacific.
Something like that. Well, as I said just then, we will be back later this evening. We're not sure exactly when just yet. We're thinking 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll keep you posted on our social media outlets when that might be, and on our YouTube page. You can follow Force 13 on there just by searching our name. And you can communicate on our Discord server, discord.gg/Force13, to converse with over 1,000 other storm trackers right now, and still growing at this point. So what a fun place to be. Sometimes. We'll be back again later this evening, but for now that's all, and well, keep your eye on this, absolutely. We've got a long few days ahead.